I'm Sierra Santos, and in honor of Women's History Month, we are pleased to be joined by insiders from around the AL Central. This division is up for grabs with 3 teams making the postseason last year. However, the projected winner isn't even one of those 3 teams. Let's go ahead and bring in our insiders. We have Audra Martin, Twins TV sideline reporter and studio host, Carly Massetti, who's a sports anchor reporter at News 5 Cleveland, Annie Rogers, who's the Royals reporter at MLB.com, and Daniela Bruce, who is the Tigers broadcast reporter. Audra, I'm going to start with you. We go way back, so why not? Let's get it started. So with Royce Lewis out for opening day and pretty much beyond with a hamstring strain, how important are healthy seasons for Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa?
Yeah, incredibly important. Such a tough scene the other day in spring training to see Royce Lewis go down again with an injury. Unfortunately, that's just the storyline of his young career. So hopefully he's able to bounce back from this one sooner rather than later. But yeah, the health of the rest of the key players is going to be huge. If you go back the last couple of years, that trio of Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton, and Carlos Correa have all dealt with injuries. And so very rarely have we seen all 3 of them on the field at once. I think we're looking at less than 40 games with the 3 of them on the field at the same time over the last couple of years. So it's going to be really important to see the rest of the team rally too. Defense is going to be key. Now that Royce is gone, who's going to switch over and take over at third base? That opens up opportunities for some of the other young guys as well. But if Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton can stay healthy and continue to do what they did last year once they were back on the field, Carlos Correa was on pace to have one of his best seasons offensively, just was limited to about 86 games. That's tough. Byron Buxton finally reached the 100-game mark last year for the first time in a while. So we did get to see some spurts of what could be when all 3 are healthy, but unfortunately we're going to have to just wait a while. Still no word exactly on how long this may keep Royce out of the equation. But given his past injury history, I think it's going to be one of those situations where they're going to be extra cautious.
Audrey, you have your stats down. You got your numbers down. Just 39 times we've seen the big 3 in the same lineup since 2023. Carly, the Guardians had the #1 bullpen in baseball last year. But how can this rotation keep that bullpen from getting burnt out?
Yeah, they're going to need that to be the case because what the bullpen did last season wasn't normal. It was historic, right? It's already hard to translate year to year like that, any success at that level, let alone the way they did with the numbers that they put up. So the starting rotation is in an interesting spot. The rotation they start with probably isn't going to be the rotation they have at the end of the season. I think the silver lining to Shane Bieber's Tommy John surgery was that it gave Tanner Bybee the chance to step up. Spring training last year, you didn't think Tanner Bybee was going to be your ace, and he was consistent. He was reliable. I think the X factor for the starting rotation is going to be Gavin Williams. He and Tanner came up together. They both made their debuts together in 2023, pretty close together. But Gavin Williams didn't have a season last year like I think he thought he would have. He wasn't as healthy. He was trying out some different stuff with his pitches. He's had an off season now to take a look at what did and didn't work. I think they could be a really, really, really incredible 1-2 punch at the top of the order. And then you look beyond that, you've Ben Lively. Ben Lively's a guy they brought in last year, kind of had a mediocre Major League Baseball resume. He went to Japan, and he'll tell you that that really changed the game for him. That really changed him from a maturity standpoint, a baseball standpoint. I think that is where the Guardians have benefited years later from that experience. Out of their entire starting rotation last year, he gave them more length than anybody on a consistent basis. And that #5 starter spot is going to be the big question mark. You have Logan Allen, who could be in that mix, Tristan McKenzie, who could be in that mix. We're obviously all hoping that we could get a 2022 Tristan McKenzie again. Whether or not that's the case, I'm not sure. I talked to Stephen Vogt before they headed out to spring training, and he said, I think that it's actually the kind of thing where, last year he was a little bit unhealthy going into the season. So maybe Tristan McKenzie is able to kind of get back to a little bit closer to that 2022 form. But having this starting rotation be in order is going to be paramount. So that way this bullpen is not the backbone of this team, because you could argue that they are the reason that the Guardians had 90+ wins on the season last year.
I am absolutely rooting for Tristan McKenzie to have a healthy season. He's one of the best guys in baseball. Annie, let's talk Royals. New leadoff hitter Jonathan India. He's had a really strong spring so far. So how does his consistency at the plate help round out this lineup?
It's huge. It's exactly what the Royals wanted to get when they traded for him, having to send homegrown starter Brady Singer to the Reds, dealing from a position for the Royals. And I can't overstate how important having a leadoff hitter is in front of Bobby Witt Jr. hitting second. This stat really opens your eyes to it. Bobby Witt Jr. recorded 709 plate appearances last year, and 433 of them are with the bases empty. He's your AL runner-up MVP. You want someone on the bases when he is at the plate, and Jonathan India has shown nothing but that this spring. He's gotten on base with walks, with singles, he's had some leadoff homers, so they're really excited. They're hoping that it translates to the regular season, because he's going to be huge for them, hitting in front of Bobby and Salvador Perez behind Vinny Pasquantino. So it's a good top of the lineup. And I think it helps the Royals lineup get a lot deeper too.
And, you know, they had the lowest on-base percentage, so absolutely something that they're going to have to try to shore up this season. And Daniela, talking Tigers and their starting rotation, they've got a group of young pitchers, but what are the expectations, especially with a guy like Tarek Skubal, who's coming off a Cy Young season, and then the return of Jack Flaherty?
Well, we know, especially with the Tigers and what they were able to do last year with pitching chaos, you need a deep rotation, right? You need some pitching depth to be successful in Major League Baseball, and I think they have that this year. Obviously, that starts with Tarek Skubal and bringing Jack Flaherty back to Detroit, a nice 1-2 punch. Reese Olson will get that third spot, but it's interesting to see the battle for the final two rotation spots. You have Casey Mize, who's trying to complete his comeback story. 2 years ago, he underwent Tommy John surgery and back surgery in the same year, so he's recovering from that, and his spring has been outstanding. So interesting to see if he'll win one of those spots. Or Jackson Jobe, the young pitching prospect that did get the call up late last year, but has not pitched a full major league season. He's been very exciting to watch. His stuff is incredible, and he added a curveball to his already really, really dangerous arsenal last offseason. So very interesting watching him too. And then Kenta Maeda, who's a veteran in this league that was demoted from a starter and moved into the bullpen last year after he struggled for the first time in a while. He went through a completely different offseason routine to try to get back to the Kenta Maeda that we know he can be. So really there's two spots open, and Cater Montero can also be thrown in that mix for four pitchers that are battling for those two spots. So their rotation is going to be very interesting. There's going to be some guys in the bullpen that maybe you wouldn't expect, and some players that don't make the team, some pitchers that don't make the team. That will be some tough conversations to have. But when you have a guy like Tarek Skubal leading the way and Jack Flaherty following, I think the expectations are really high for this Tigers rotation as you go into this season.
Let's keep talking rotations. Audra, I'm going to toss it back to you. So what are the expectations for the Twins? Because you got guys like Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober.
Yeah, I would say the expectations are high, and rightfully so. This is a group of guys that have proven themselves time and time again. One question mark certainly could be Joe Ryan, just coming off of the injury last season, but he was so dominant, so impressive leading up to that injury, and sounds like there's no reason to think that he can't pick up right where he left off. And then you look at both Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez. Those guys are just workhorses, so reliable. You know, Pablo Lopez didn't have his best season, but the velocity and stuff was still right there and impressive, and we know how good he can be. So even if he was just a little off last year, he was still incredibly effective, very impressive. And Bailey Ober has just taken so many steps forward, it seems like, year after year. And what he's been able to do, especially with the uptick in his velocity, with his size, he's tough to go against. And so I think the three of them together, a lot of teams would love to have those three as a guarantee. And then with Chris Paddock and now officially Simeon Woods Richardson rounding out the starting rotation, I think the rotation is certainly a reason to be excited and to have some high expectations for the Twins this year. And then given what they have waiting in the bullpen as well, I would say that pitching certainly is shaping up to be the strength and the driving force of this team.
I'm going to ask Annie about Jack Caglione. What did the Royals learn about him in Major League Camp this spring? I know what I learned about him from Vinny Pasquantino, and he says that he has the most massive hands he's ever seen in his life.
That is true. I can confirm that. You shake his hand and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just a large human. But he's a really good hitter. That's what they learned. They were really happy with his spring. There's all this hype on social media, like, oh, could he make the opening day roster? And, you know, they were never thinking like that. They didn't think it was fair to him. He just got drafted 9 months ago in 2024, number 6 overall. But what he did show is that he's probably more advanced than even the Royals may have thought coming into spring training. He had some really good at-bats, made some big strides defensively at first base too. So he's going to start the season at AA, and where he goes from there is up to his bat. If he's hitting and beating AA, then he's going to go to AAA, and then he's probably going to learn the outfield, because the Royals have to figure out how he fits on the roster with Vinny Pasquantino and Salvador Perez both playing first base. So it's exciting. I think Royals fans are really excited. I think the Royals organization is really excited about Jack Caglione, and for good reason. He hit the ball really, really hard this spring. He showed that he fits right into that big league clubhouse. I think the future is very bright for this young man.
Ladies, thanks so much for joining us for this Women's History Month roundtable. You are the talented women who cover the AL Central, and we really appreciate the knowledge and the time.
All right, so now we'll go to the big ticket items. Mark Shapiro, Blue Jays CEO and president, spoke to reporters about the extension, a possibility of an extension with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's in his contract here, saying, how about this, Dan? I think we're going to sign him. I think we're going to extend him. We have such a clear alignment on the desired outcome. Vlad wants to play his whole career as a Blue Jay. We want him to end his career in a Blue Jays uniform, be a true legacy player for the Blue Jays. That's a pretty good place to start. He goes on to say, let me be clear. Now, this is kind of incongruous with the first part. There's only been one player in my time in Major League Baseball who's had a marketing case that significantly and meaningfully offset the value of his contract. One player, only one. I think he's talking about Shohei Ohtani, I believe, right? Would you think? All right. In every other case, I would say the only other thing that actually sells tickets in the hundreds of thousands is winning. there are players who have magnetic personalities like Vlad who amplify winning, can really help, but fans don't come to see great players on losing teams. He makes an excellent point, but those things are at odds with each other, right? Because you're saying, hey, you got to sign Vladdy, you got to pay a premium to keep him because he puts fannies in seats. I mean, Mark Shapiro's been around baseball a long, long time. He knows, no. What plays is winning. You got to have a team that wins, and that puts people in seats.
Okay, you and I aren't familiar with the financials, but from what we've read, they were about $50 million apart, I believe, on getting a deal done.
That was a report.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about in the realm of a $400, $500, $6 million conversation,
right.
that's not a big gap to bridge.
8 years, 10 years.
Now,
yeah.
I will say this. If you're the Blue Jays, you've done a lot of improvements to the Rogers Center. You look at that starting rotation. There's a lot of possibilities. If Max Scherzer is able to start the season and be active with Barrios and Bassett, and you look at that rotation, Bowden Francis was really good last year. Kevin Gausman, their starting rotation. I'm going to argue with this. I think the Blue Jays starting rotation is unquestionably the best and deepest in the AL East. Their starting rotation on paper is better than the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's better than the Orioles, and it's better than the Red Sox. If these guys stay healthy, the key to me with the Blue Jays, does Bo Bichette bounce back and be the player he was 2 or 3 years ago? I'm saying he is.
I say so, too. He made my top 10.
I'm going to sell you on the Blue Jays. We have.
I go a lot harder.
Can I go on my phone and get on my map to see how much time?
Here's the thing. Like, it seemed, and maybe I'm way off on this, but it seemed that Vlad Jr. and his camp and all of his people, right? Of course, they believe he's a true superstar player, which he was last year, but he is rather mercurial. He has ups and downs. Yet, the level to which he played last year, Dan, if he's looking for a Machado or Bryce Harper level deal, if I'm a general manager, I give it to him. But that, Dan, I'm looking at outdated numbers with that. I'm saying that's a $300 million player. I have a feeling a guy of Vlad's stature is now looking at Juan Soto's deal and saying, wait, that a 3, I'm looking at a 7. And that's just impossible money for most clubs, Dan.
I think the hang-up with the Blue Jays is I think this contract would be a record contract for first baseman / DH. I believe Mark Teixeira, Prince Fielder, some of the biggest contracts, Miguel Cabrera, right in the 285 to 290 slot. But those guys, you're talking about Soto, you're talking about Ohtani, outfielders, guys that just aren't logged into first base / DH.
True. Yeah, it's tough. You know where I stand on these long-term deals. Most times you're better off just letting the guy walk, but it's tough when he's your own guy. You know what they could do? It's like jump on Bo Bichette now when the stock is low, right?
I'm going to sell you on the Blue Jays before it's over. Or not.